Hey, it's Karolyn. I'm about to make a two-dimensional beach ball topper for a cake that I'm working on, and I wanted to show you how I do that, so stay tuned so you can see what I do. Okay, so here's the beach ball that I'm going to be making, and as you can see, it has every color of the rainbow in it. So what I did was I rolled out fondant. You can see all these different colors of fondant that I have rolled out. I always mix my fondant. I use marshmallow fondant. You can use whatever fondant you want. But I always mix a little bit of Tylose powder in with my fondant. It helps stiffen it up and makes it easier to work with. So roll out the fondant with a little bit of Tylose powder. A little goes a long way. And let that sit for about 10 minutes so it can stiffen up. And also, I have a thicker, I rolled out some white marshmallow fondant around a ½ inch, is that? 3/4 of an inch thick. And I let that sit because that is what I'm going to be putting all the colors on. This other fondant that I rolled out is very thin. You want to get it, I don't know, what is that, 1/8 of an inch or something like that. So once you have all your fondant rolled out and you have the thicker white fondant in all the colors, then we can start. The main tools that I use for something like this is a needle tool, an X-Acto knife, and a Dresden tool. I got this in a flower former kit from Wilton. It has a pointy end to it and a flat end. It's just one of my favorite tools for doing decorations like this. I don't always use it, but I always like to have it around. I have a little bit, I have a little paintbrush with a little bit of water. And as always, I have a folded up paper towel that I wet with water so I can keep wiping off my tools, because sometimes fondant sticks to it, so I'm constantly just wiping it off. So what we do is take the ball. I printed this out. This is going to go on top of a 4-inch tier. I believe it's 4 inches wide by 4 inches tall, so this will fit on the top tier. I'm putting this down on top of it, and I'm going to take my needle tool and poke holes along the outside and then along the line. So basically I'm tracing the red part of this ball. Once I do that, peel it back, and then I have the dots that have come through on the fondant. You may not be able to see it, but it's there. So what I want to do now is take my X-Acto knife and start cutting just on the inside of those dots so I can get that shape. And there we go. Set this aside. Grab the orange and do the same thing. This picture I just Googled, I think I Googled beach ball clip art or something like that, and this picture came up. You can Google anything and basically find the image that you want to use for your cake. Taking that off and doing the same thing by cutting it out on the inside of the dots that you made on the fondant. Setting that aside and then putting these up to each other, making sure they match, which they do, and then grabbing the yellow and starting the process again. Now this is sticking out a little bit on the end, but we will fix that in a little bit. Just want to make sure the circle in the middle is all lined up. All right, here's the beginning of it. So it's not perfect in a circle yet, but I will get that. We will take care of that when I put it together. So I'm going to move this aside and bring the thicker white fondant piece that I had rolled out earlier. So taking my paintbrush with a little bit of water on it, I'm going to start with the red and lightly wet the back of this. Like I always say, you want to make sure you have to find the perfect amount of water. Too little and it won't stick, or too much and it's going to seep out under the edges. So just enough to make it stick, and then place it down. So as I'm putting this on here, I'm trying to get this part on the inside lined up as much as I can, and then I'll take care of the outside when I'm finished. So now I didn't put this on right, so I'm going to try to pick this up and maneuver this into place. Okay, so we have a little problem here. This green piece is a little too short. So what I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna take this and put this back on top of the green, and I'm gonna make that piece a little longer. So poking the holes the same way that I did before, but this time extending it past the green onto the blue so it can fill that void that's there. Much better. Okay. So as you see, things don't always work out perfectly. You do have to finagle things into place, but for the most part, you can get them to work. Now we have this circle here, which, come to think of it, I should have cut that circle out before I put it onto this. So not a big deal. So this circle is from an Icing circle cutter set, and what I'm going to do is just push down to get the line in here that I need. You should be able to just cut a circle out of here, smoothing the edges and placing it on top. Good. Then wet the back of this. And put that in the middle. Now here's where I take my Dresden tool and kind of flatten this down into place where it needs to go. And there we have it. So I got these circle cutters at a restaurant store. They're by Icing, 9-piece polycarbonate. I don't know. They're not great for cutting fondant because they're not sharp, but it can still give me a perfect circle. So what I'm going to do is place this on top of the ball. Excuse me if my head gets in the way. I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. And I'm trying to find a place where I can get the most perfect circle. And I'm going to push into the fondant to get the mark that I'm going to cut out. So as you can see, it pushed in the fondant down here. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and basically just cut out. Right now I'm sawing through the fondant. If I try to pull through the fondant, it's going to drag. So right now I'm just making a marker line along that line that I just cut with that plastic circle. So I'm just lightly tracing that line that I just made. If you have a big circle cutter for fondant, that would work. That would probably cut right through this, but this piece is not sharp enough for me to cut this, so I have to do it this way. I do have Icing circle fondant cutters, but this set only goes up to this size. That's why I bought this plastic set, because the size is so much bigger. So if you do have a fondant cutter that is this metal that will cut through fondant, then by all means use that instead. So now that I made my circle the whole way around, I can dig my knife in and start to cut the whole way down, using that line that I just pre-cut as a guide to drag my knife. And then removing the excess. And like always, I'm gonna flip this over and smooth out all of the edges that I just cut with my finger to get rid of any ugly, jagged edges that were made when I made the cut. So I flip it over and smooth the underside, and then I flip it over again and smooth the top side down, so it's completely smooth. So now I wet the end of this 8-inch bamboo skewer, and I'm just going to insert that into the ball. So I have the bamboo skewer here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist. I'm not going to push it right into the ball because that's going to distort the shape. So this fondant is still soft, so I don't want to mess up the shape. So as per this picture, I want the white dot to kind of be up in the upper right hand corner as it is. So I'm going to start to slowly twist. As I'm pushing this in the cake, I'm twisting it with my hands. You're not going to be able to see the whole thing because I'm zooming in. But you need to make sure you go halfway in between the fondant so it's not going to stick out the top or the bottom. And that's a tricky part of this. So as you're twisting, little bit at a time, twist, 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 twist. Then I flip it over to make sure it's not showing through the back. Twist, 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 and push. Twist and push. And then I flip it over again to make sure it's not popping out the front. Twist and push. I can kind of feel the stick in there, but if I'm not seeing it, then that's good. Sometimes if I feel it coming through the top, sorry, it got a little blurry there. Sometimes if I feel it coming through the top, I push down with my top finger as I'm twisting it to get it to come lower. Turn it over. Twist and push, twist and push. And then you don't want it to poke out of the top, so that's good. This boy is turning 13 years old, so on top of this ball, or on the front of this ball, I want to put this number 13. So I'm going to do the same thing. I have black fondant rolled out, and I'm going to place the paper. Now I went and I printed this out the size that I wanted to be. I wanted to make sure that this 13 is going to fit inside of this ball, which it will. So you have to make sure your numbers and letters are the right sizes that you want for the cake. So I'm going to put this on top of the black fondant, and then do as I always do, poke the holes around the letter or the number, making sure. Now for something like this, I usually poke the holes a little bit outside of the number. That way when I go to cut it, it'll be on the inside of the number and it will be the size that I want. If I trace these dots exactly on the number, when I go to cut it, I'm going to have to cut inside of that and my number is going to end up smaller. So I always poke the holes a little bit further outside. And as you can see up here, I want the number 1 to have a sharp edge. So I just continued the dots out to the corner and came down. So sometimes you have to look past what is actually on the paper and figure out what you want it to look like, if that makes any sense. Makes sense in my head, so I hope I'm explaining it right. Taking that off, and now using my X-Acto knife to cut out the 13. And then, like always, taking my finger and rubbing it on the sides to smooth out any jagged edges that formed when I cut this. Now, whatever you have to do to try to make it neat. This does take time to do this, but it makes everything look so much cleaner when you take the time to smooth out all of the edges. So now I bring that back, and I kind of wish I put the stick down here so you could see the white part. Not a big deal, whatever. I could do the 13 like this. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah, that looks good. So here we go. I have the 13 here on the cake, so I'm going to take my paintbrush, not the cake, on the topper, and a little bit of water on the back. And there you go. There's your 2D beach ball birthday cake topper. So here it is. Here's your 2D beach ball cake topper. And like I said before, I'm going to leave it on this cutting board just to dry for a day or two so it'll hold its shape when I put it on the cake. So I think that is it. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you liked this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already to see more videos like this. And you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and I have my website. And I think that's it. So I will see you on the next one. Bye.